in our headlines on this Friday afternoon, March 31st. Donald Trump becomes the first former U.S. president to face criminal charges after a grand jury in New York votes to indict him amid accusations of bribery on the eve of the 2016 presidential election. Meanwhile, the latest economic findings show a further gain in Korea's industrial output, as well as rebounds in retail sales and facility investment, despite a dramatic drop in semiconductor production. The South Korean capital city is hosting a special exhibition to showcase its support for Busan's bid to host the World EXPO 2030, just ahead of a planned on-site inspection by the International Bureau of Expositions. For the first time in its history, the U.S. is witnessing a former president face criminal charges as a grand jury in New York votes to indict Donald Trump. Jimin has our top story.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump was indicted by a 23-member Manhattan grand jury on Thursday over allegations of hush money payments made in 2016. This comes amidst another run for the White House and claims by Trump that he is completely innocent. The Manhattan investigation is just one of several legal challenges that Trump is facing, and one that Trump has called the greatest witch hunt in history. No former or sitting U.S. president has ever faced criminal charges. The specific charges are not known yet, and the indictment will likely be unsealed by a judge in the coming days. But the 5-year probe was in connection to a $130,000 US hush money payment made in the final days of the 2016 campaign to porn star Stormy Daniels for her silence on claims she made of a sexual encounter with Trump, which was logged as legal expenses. The alleged encounter took place in 2006, a year after Trump married his current wife, Melania. The former president's personal lawyer, Michael Cohen, has said he coordinated with Trump on the payments to Daniels and a second payment of $150,000 US to a second woman, known to be a former Playboy model. Trump has denied having affairs with either woman. Cohen himself has pleaded guilty in 2018 to a campaign finance violation and served more than a year in prison. A spokesman for the Manhattan District Attorney's Office said prosecutors had reached out to Trump's defense team to coordinate a surrender on Friday. A person familiar with the matter said Trump is expected to turn himself in on Tuesday. For security reasons, his booking is expected to be carefully choreographed to avoid crowds inside or outside the courthouse. Jin, Arirang News.
The U.S. remains committed to ridding the Korean Peninsula of nuclear weapons. Now, this is according to Pentagon spokesperson Pat Ryder on Thursday, when asked about the prospects of deploying nuclear weapons to South Korea. He chose to refrain from a direct response and instead said the Pentagon would consult with the U.S. Congress on the matter while continuing talks with South Korea on extended deterrence. He also claimed there was nothing to show on prospects of additional deployment of the anti-missile defense system thawed to South Korea. Here in Seoul, Foreign Minister Park Jin played host to his Indonesian counterpart Retno Marsudi on this Friday for the 4th Korea-Indonesia Joint Commission meeting. This latest meeting comes as the two countries mark their 50th anniversary of diplomatic ties this year. Accordingly, the two officials touched upon ways to boost bilateral economic activities and to advance peace and prosperity in the Indo-Pacific region. Park praised Indonesia on its productive ASEAN presidency this year and shared hopes for constructive collaboration on Seoul's Indo-Pacific strategy and the Korea-ASEAN Solidarity Initiative. Marsudi, in response, welcomed efforts to further bolster joint ventures. On the local economic front, despite a dramatic decline in chip production last month, Korea marked improvements in industrial output, retail sales and facility investment. Our Moon Hye-ryun has the latest numbers.
Data released by Statistics Korea on Friday shows that the index for the country's overall industrial output in February stood at 109.4, up 0.3% on month. It's the second month in a row that industrial output has increased compared to the previous month. This was attributed to the rise in services, which rose by 0.7% overall, with the dining and accommodation sector, as well as the sports and leisure activity sector, showing the biggest growth since January.
Due to favorable weather and the slowing of the COVID-19 pandemic, all industrial production increased 0.3% a month due to growth in industries such as accommodation, food, art, sports and leisure.
However, output from the mineral and manufacturing industries fell by 3.2% on month due to a decline in semiconductor production, which slumped by more than 17% on month and over 41% compared to the same month last year. This is the greatest decline on month since December 2008. But the index for retail sales, a key gauge of consumer demand, saw a rise of 5.3% compared to the previous month, standing at 108.4 in February. The significant rise came following a consecutive three-month decline that began in November last year. Sales across all three sectors, measured by the agency, divided into durables, non-durables and semi-durable goods, saw a rise. In particular, department store and auto shop sales showed increases compared to January. Facility investment also rose by 0.2% on month due to continued investment in manufacturing facilities by companies amid growing expectations that semiconductor prices will improve in the second half of the year. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
On the local political front, the ruling party, the government and the presidential office on this Friday held a breakfast meeting to address plans to allow for flexible work hours. The ruling People Power Party says a survey will be conducted on 6,000 people for feedback before a new proposal is made. This follows the recent public backlash over an earlier government proposal for up to 69 hours of work per week from the current 52 hours. Participants also addressed utility bills, agreeing that a rise in electricity and gas prices is inevitable amid the operating deficits for KEPCO and the Korea Gas Corporation. More talks have been planned with regard to the size and timing of the price hikes. Seoul is rallying behind Busan's bid to host the 2030 World Expo. In fact, the capital city is hosting a special exhibition to showcase its support and more, just ahead of a planned visit by a delegation from the International Bureau of Expositions for an on-site inspection. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin reports.
Blue roses, the symbol of hope and aspiration, light up Gwanghwamun Square in central Seoul. They're hoping that Busan, South Korea's second-largest city, becomes the venue for the 2030 World Expo, one of the three major international events along with the Olympics and the World Cup. In light of this, Gwanghwamun Square has gone through a complete makeover.
As the Bureau International d'Exposition, the organizer of the expo, is visiting South Korea for a project examination, we planned this event to show people both at home and abroad Korea's dedication to the 2030 World Expo.
Here, you can take a look at the past and future of the World Expo. Yukjo-madang, the start of the square, tells the expo's more than century-long history. Groundbreaking inventions like the telephone and the airplane were all introduced for the first time at past editions of the expo. Next up, the three themes of the 2030 Busan World Expo. First, technology for humanity, like Korean motor giant Kia's new electric model, the EV9, is being showcased. Second, sustainable living with nature. You can enjoy some of SK Innovation's efforts to go green, like its fast-charging EV batteries. And a booth set up by Busan City where people can generate renewable energy by riding this bike inside. Finally, a platform for caring and sharing. Characters representing Lotte Group, Pelligom, Rotti, and Rori were there to greet visitors. There's also a wish tree filled with messages in support of Busan winning the bid. The 5-day exhibition gives some indication of Korea's ability to host the 2030 World Expo.
We were surprised because the place was packed with so many people. Just looking at this big crowd makes me confident that the 2030 World Expo is Busan's.
I'm very proud to be here seeing all these brands, and all these events are very exciting, all the photo booths, all the gifts that you're getting, and I hope Busan becomes the place for the expo.
Now, hopes are high, and the excitement towards Busan's bid to host the 2030 World Expo is stronger than ever. Starting from here at Gwanghwamun Square, South Korea is showing that it's ready for the BIE's upcoming on-site inspection. 송유진, Arirang News.
Right, also here in the capital city, the 2023 Seoul Mobility Show is currently underway to share with the public the latest advances in the modes of future mobility with a focus on sustainability. Arirang's Jisoo was there.
Innovative electric SUVs, robots, and purpose-built vehicles. This year's Seoul Mobility Show is being held under the theme of sustainable, connected, and mobility. The 10-day event, which first began in 1995, changed its name from the Seoul Motor Show to the Seoul Mobility Show in 2021 to reflect the addition of new transportation modes, including urban air mobility and autonomous cars. Over 160 companies and organizations from 10 different countries are partaking in South Korea's largest motor show this year. One of the show's most anticipated reveals is none other than Kia's large electric SUV, the EV9, showcased to the public for the first time.
The EV9 strives to offer a user experience that goes beyond the means of transportation to create a life mobility space where families can bond and spend time together.
The EV9 SUV reflects Kia's intention to be more electric. The 3-row SUV also has second-row seats that can swivel 180 degrees to face the rear. Another company that garnered attention even before the event is KG Mobility, previously known as Sangyong Motors. This is KG Mobility's grand return after 4 years. The Taurus EVX is a mid-size electric SUV with distinctive features such as LED daytime running lights that enhances the visibility of the vehicle.
As for the horizontal daytime running lights, you can see the wideness from the front, as well as it also stands out because of its dotted form.
Also on display for the first time domestically are Hyundai Mobis's PBV M Vision 2 and M Vision High, which embodies the company's future strategy centered around urban mobility. Attendees can experience crab driving, where wheels can be rotated by 90 degrees, as well as 360-degree static turns.
The M Vision 2 was created as an urban mobility vehicle. The 90 and 360-degree rotations make it possible for people to parallel park and change directions easily in a limited space. You can think of it as a function that was specifically designed for the city.
A prototype of Tesla's humanoid robot Optimus is also on display for the first time in Korea.
These close looks into the present and future of mobility leaves no doubt that there is something for every car and tech enthusiast in the nation at this show. Jisoo, Arirang News.
On the diplomatic front, Turkey has taken a significant step forward in facilitating Finland's accession into NATO. The Turkish parliament voted in favor of Finland's membership on Thursday local time after Hungary did the same on Monday. Now, Finland is soon set to become the 74-year-old military alliance's 31st member. Separately, both Turkey and Hungary have yet to ratify Sweden's bid to enter NATO. Sweden and Finland applied to join NATO last May following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And speaking about Russia, a Wall Street Journal reporter has been arrested there on spying charges. Now, his arrest earlier on Thursday follows a similar charge against a Russian national in the U.S. last week who allegedly entered the country with fake documents to gather Russia-relevant information. Our Isunje has the latest.
In a move that will certainly further deteriorate relations between the United States and Russia, Russian authorities on Thursday announced that it had detained Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich. Russia's main security service, the FSB, said that the American journalist, who had been based in Moscow, has been trying to obtain state secrets. A Russian district court in Moscow said that he would be detained until May 29th. The arrest of Gershkovich marks the first time an American journalist has been detained by Russia over allegations of spying since the Cold War. However, the arrest also comes a week after U.S. authorities arrested a Russian national in the United States for allegedly spying. Despite speculation, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov did not say if Gershkovich's arrest was a retaliatory measure. In response to the arrest, the White House slammed Moscow, calling it unacceptable.
The State Department has also been in touch with the Wall Street Journal and his family on this matter. This espionage charges are ridiculous. The targeting of American citizens by Russian government is unacceptable. We condemn the detention of Mr. Gershkovich in the strongest terms. We also condemn the Russian government's continued targeting and repression of journalists.
The White House spokesperson also warned Americans against traveling to Russia, while also calling on any U.S. citizens living or currently visiting Russia to leave immediately. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
On the entertainment front, solo works released by members of big K-pop groups are proving to be very popular. Jimin from BTS released his first solo album Face only a week ago. And according to Hanteo chart on this Friday, it has sold over 1.45 million copies. It also broke the record as the best-selling album by a K-pop solo artist in the first week of its release. Meanwhile, Jisoo from BLACKPINK today released her first solo album called Me. And according to her record label, that is, YG Entertainment, total sales, including pre-orders, surpassed 1.24 million as of Thursday, that is, yesterday. Now, this is the highest ever figure by a K-pop female solo artist. On the cultural front, members of the media here back on Thursday were offered the rare chance to witness firsthand a wooden map of Chosun made by a Korean geologist back in the year 1861. My colleague Choi Soo-young was there and covers its relevance.
Daedongyeojido is regarded as the greatest map of Joseon dynasty. It means territorial map of the Great East, and was made using wooden blocks in 1861 by mapping specialist and geologist Kim Jung-ho. He created it based on the map named Donggyeodo that included all the roads, rivers, mountains, and even military bases, and over 18,000 names, as well as the history of the regions from the Joseon period. There are 35 previous editions of Daedongyeojido, but a lot of information was omitted from them because it was hard to engrave on wood blocks one by one. Daedongyeojido consists of 23 separate and foldable booklets, including one volume with a table of contents. It divided the Korean Peninsula into 22 sections from north to south and is 8 meters wide and 5 meters long. When all 22 booklets are unfolded and laid together, it becomes an enormous-sized map of Korea. The Cultural Heritage Administration unveiled the 36th edition on Thursday morning to the press for the first time after its restitution from Japan. Its existence had passed into legend, but was confirmed for the first time in July 2022 when the former owner decided to sell. Experts assumed it was picked up during the Japanese colonial period by an obsessed European collector. Meanwhile, officials said this new edition is important because it was printed on paper first and added to using handwriting with almost all of the specific details. In the second volume, Baekdusan national boundary monuments mark the boundary between the Joseon and Qing dynasties. Moreover, in the 14th volume, a departure point can be seen for ships heading to Ulleungdo Island and the neighboring region. Shipping routes between Jeju Island and Jeollanam-do province are also outlined in the last volume. This new version of Daedongyeojido is very valuable as a means of showing what the Joseon dynasty's territory looked like before Japanese occupation. And it shows how the people of Joseon used Daedongyeojido.
You can see the meaning of the maps in Joseon society and how intelligently the maps were used through this new edition.
According to the officials, this new edition of Daedongyeojido will enhance interest in both the scientific cultural heritage of Joseon dynasty and inspire pride in Korean history. Choi Soo-young, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In the Philippines, search and rescue efforts are ongoing following a deadly ferry fire. According to the latest reports, at least 31 people have been killed and 7 are missing after an inter-island ferry traveling from Zamboanga province to Jolo Zulu province caught fire on Wednesday night local time. The fire started while most passengers were asleep. Over 220 of the total 250 passengers were rescued, with dozens jumping into the sea in a bid to escape the flames. Passengers were helped by the Coast Guard and local residents of the nearby Baluk Baluk Island. The cause of the fire is still being determined, but eyewitnesses report hearing explosions both before and after the blaze started. The Philippines has a record of maritime disasters due to aging vessels and overcrowding on ships. Turning over to the U.S. state of Kentucky now, where at least 9 U.S. service members have died following the crash of 2 U.S. Army Black Hawk helicopters. The crash occurred near Fort Campbell in the state's southwest during a routine training exercise that involved 4 helicopters on Wednesday evening local time. Now, reports say the 2 aircraft crashed into an open field and that there were no survivors. The helicopters were medical evacuation aircraft, part of the 101st Airborne Division. The cause of the crashes is still under investigation, and it's not known whether they collided with each other. The crash marks one of the deadliest training disasters for the U.S. military in recent times. Meanwhile, Major League Baseball's regular season kicked off on Thursday with new rules introduced which are meant to speed up games and introduce more action. And included in the changes is a first for the league, as games will now feature a pitch clock. Pitchers will now only be allowed 15 seconds to throw a pitch when bases are empty and 20 seconds if a base has a runner. And staying with bases, these have been enlarged from 38.1 centimeters to 45.7 centimeters. This is to accommodate the growing size of players over the years and to encourage more base steals, as well as to reduce injuries. And finally, researchers have found that plants can make noise. According to a study published in the science journal Cell on Thursday, plants make clicking and popping sounds that are not audible to the human ear. But using a special ultrasonic microphone, researchers have been able to capture what these noises sound like across a variety of plant types. Let's take a listen. Now, the finding shakes up previously held notions that the plant kingdom was mostly silent. Researchers also found that stressed plants make about 30 to 50 sounds per hour, while unstressed plants emit about 1 sound per hour. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. It feels more like the middle to end of May on this last day of March, with cherry blossoms already reaching near full bloom in the capital region. But of course, it's that very unwelcome fine dust that's causing headaches to those of us in the west of central regions and Gyeongsang-do provinces. And unfortunately, it does not look any better this weekend either. Wash hands frequently and drink plenty of water. And another reason to stay hydrated is due to the dry air. The dry weather advisory is expanding to more parts of the country, so when you are going hiking, fire safety is a must. Afternoon highs are 1 to 3 degrees higher than yesterday under sunny skies nationwide. And it's going to be even hotter this weekend with an expected peak above 25 degrees in the capital. And it also looks to be a very crowded weekend on the roads with that blossoms attracting crowds. That much hoped for rain is in the forecast for the first week of April. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
Right, that ends Friday's afternoon newscast. We have our panel session on the recent Summit for Democracy coming up next, so do stay tuned.